I was starting to toy with the idea of a makerspace, though I didn't know to call it a makerspace. When I first discovered the term makerspace, it was funny. I had started this business called Maker Design Build, and it was kind of an inside joke for myself because I've always been defiant about what I make. I like to be fairly vague about the stuff that I work on, and I thought maker was vague enough that it made sense. And I was looking for a place to do that work. I couldn't afford to do it on my own, so I thought maybe if me and a friend went in on a space together, it would cut the cost down, and maybe if a bunch of us went in on it, it would make it even cheaper. So it was just funny when I finally came across the term makerspace. It was sort of like, oh, that's what I'm working on. I'm working on a place for maker design build. That's funny, and then I just started digging into it and becoming obsessed with maker spaces and what it would be like to have one or what this project, I don't know, whatever it grew into. I asked the community for help a lot. I asked the community for suggestions and direction a lot. Um, just purely as like a straight up business move. I know if I'm trying to help the community, I really need their input. I need to be able to create something that is useful for them, and I don't see any better way of getting that input than simply asking them what they want. So I do that a lot. Uh, some of the problems that we've encountered, well, boy, when we first got started, we didn't have any money or a space. We sure wished we had a makerspace, but we didn't have any money or a space, and that was a hassle. And luckily, I was able to find a guy who had some beat up old warehouse space, and I got him to get me a key so that I could show some other people the space. And then I just started hanging out in that space with the key all the time and started inviting more people to hang out in the space with the key. And then I got some tools donated there, and we stuck those there. And then we set up an account with the power company for that building, and then we started fixing the building, and we just sort of started squatting and grew into this old warehouse space. Um, and that was great. We got to be pretty strong. We had about 160 members in the squat, and yeah, so I just started charging people membership for like squatting in the building with me. And then we got 160 members, and we kind of outgrew that space, and their project outgrew our squat, and so those two projects went their own way, and we ended up finding ourselves homeless as a community of makers without a space. We had a pile of tools at that point, but no space. So I think the biggest hurdle that we've come to was the loss of space. And how did I overcome that problem? I did a lot of running. I ran like 1,000 miles to clear my head, and that was good, really good for me. And I stayed really persistent on the search for space. I looked at a whole lot of different spaces and got into a bunch of contracts or a bunch of negotiations with a bunch of different landlords and on other buildings. And then we were lucky enough to find this space, uh, which was more money per square foot than we thought we were able to pay, but we decided we would go with a smaller space that was in better condition than the old leaky, cold warehouse that we had been squatting in. And landlord loved the project. We were able to make the money work, and we got in here. We didn't have enough money to pay the rent when we started, but I knew that a bunch of people were interested because we had tested the model in the squat, and I trusted that if I signed the lease and I opened the doors, that everybody would come back. And I signed the lease and opened the doors, and a whole ton of people came back. But we've been around since 2013, and I did it with stories. When I got started, I spent a year basically just telling people the story, saying, "Oh, I'm thinking about doing this thing. Wouldn't it be cool if we had a space we could get together and work, and everybody could get access to it? We could share each other's tools." And basically, I would tell people the story, and I would just watch their face and see if they were doing this or doing this. And then I'd change my story, and I'd tell the next person and watch to see if they were doing this or doing this until everybody was doing this. And then I realized that I had the story honed down. I understood sort of what everybody was resonating around. Um, and that was a big part of generating the idea, and sort of those was my early prototypes. They were really cheap. It was just a cup of coffee and a story. I didn't have to build anything. I could just use the imagination narrative to describe what it was and get a lot of feedback from people about it. That being said, a whole bunch of people who said that they'd get memberships who thought that was an awesome idea. Very few of those people, maybe 3% of those people, actually got memberships and signed up. The first person who wanted to get a membership walked by the building while I was in the squat showing like old 70s movies on a projector, giant on a wall, so I didn't go crazy. He walked by and was like, "This is the coolest thing ever. I'll give you a membership." And he paid $30 a month for hanging out in the building. It had nothing to do with making, just for getting together and talking about what's possible. With 3 membership tiers, basically we call them the dabbler, the doer, and the diehard. And the dabbler, you can come in on weekends for $39. The doer, you can come in weekdays for $79, and the diehard is $200 for full time. Both the dabbler and the doer can add weeknights for $19. Shop's always open.
Okay.
And not always staffed though. But if you have a late night membership, you can come here late night. We don't like people using power tools late at night by themselves. We like them to have a buddy system kind of going on. Well, so you have to sign a membership agreement when you become a member, and then you have to sign a waiver. So you have to sign a waiver to come into the space. You have to sign a membership agreement to be a member, and then we do a safety checkout on some of the bigger, more dangerous equipment. Not everything. There's a ton of things you can use here, but the bigger, more dangerous pieces we like to run through and watch to see how you're. I like to say we make sure that we're all cutting our fingers off in the same way. So this gives us a baseline of understanding as to where we're all at. If you're the insurance agency, that was totally a joke. If you're trying to start a makerspace, don't rush for the money. That's often a big mistake. People think that money's the answer, but money's just like rocket fuel. If you turn it on without a destination, you're putting fins on your rocket, it just crashes you into the ground that much sooner. What are people interested in learning about at your makerspace? We are working hard on developing programming here. We have an education mission, and so I'm always interested in what sorts of classes you find to be successful, and what are some of the things that are easy on-ramps for people to start making. Not really the complicated, high, geeky stuff, but the stuff that quickly gets people to saying, "Oh, I did that," so then they can come back and do it again.